Hey guys, Jared, Transformational Coaching, Action is Transformation. In this video, we're going to get into how do you know if someone is right for you. I think this is a really important question to ask in any type of relationship, whether you're going into a business relationship, whether you're going into a romantic relationship. Most individuals just allow things to naturally happen. And I think it's important to allow something to naturally happen, but we also want to go into any situation or potential new relationship with a sense of awareness around our own needs, their needs, the compatibility, levels of chemistry. Ultimately, if you really know what it is that you need and what the other person needs going into any relationship. So I'm just going to share with you 3 things that I'm always very aware of that I used to not be aware of that really help guide my decision-making process and that have helped other people that I've worked with. So let's get into it. And guys, first off, I just want to say if you like what you see here, please subscribe and also share with anyone if you feel compelled to do so and you find this really helpful. So I can remember when I look back at some of my relationships, one of the easiest things for anyone to do is get caught up in all the similarities. And it's important to see the similarities that you have, but there's also just as many differences, I promise. So it's important to recognize where there's similarities and where you resonate with another individual, but also where there's differences as well too, and not allow the honeymoon or limerence stage overtake you. And the honeymoon and limerence stage is that stage where the dopamine and oxytocin is kicking up through the brain and through the energy field, and you're like, oh my God, this person's awesome. We're so similar. We're so alike. And when you're under that influence, that chemical influence, which has a similar reaction to the body actually has a similar reaction to cocaine as it does dopamine and oxytocin. So we need to be aware of how that chemical is influencing us, our physiology, and our decision-making process. So how do we want to go about this? Well, the first thing is to recognize that whoever you're really attracted to, whoever you're gravitating towards, or you feel that chemical explosion, don't allow that to overtake you. Really think what would actually be best. I can remember in one relationship that I had, the girl was nothing like me. She was an artist, really deeply loved her. She was an artist. She wasn't aware of time as to how I was. I was coming from a military background, but we gelled together really well, and we were very dissimilar. There were certain things about us that were very similar, but there was other things that were completely different. And if I had imagined myself being in a good relationship with an artist, the artistry type, I would have never thought that. So it's really important to ask ourselves, what is it that we want out of a relationship, but also just because that person isn't like us doesn't mean that you can have a really great, awesome compatibility factor. What you think might be really good for you in a relationship might not actually be what's good for you in a relationship. And that really brings me to point number 1, which is you'll feel a sense of chemistry and explosion. So you'll feel a sense of, wow, this is awesome. This, energetically, I can feel this rush, this joy, this really good feeling wells up inside of me when I connect with this person. And that's really the chemical or part of the relationship. We want to be aware of what really moves us, what excites us, what gets us into that passionate flow. That's important. But then we also want to be aware of long-term compatibility factors. That chemistry is really good, but if that chemistry, that sense of pleasure, enjoyment, excitement, that's only the beginning of a relationship. If that's coming in the beginning, that's important to see that and recognize that, and that's a really key factor to guide you. However, there's also the rational, you want to have the rational part of the brain kick in as well too, and ask yourself, well, long term, if I want to create something longevitous, and then what exactly would make this relationship successful in the long term, if that's what you're looking for. Remember, all relationships serve as some type of need, whether it's a need to evolve or grow, or to structure our life in a certain way. Usually we are, I guess you could say, almost chemically pulled, or energetically pulled to the type of relationship that wants you to teach you another aspect about yourself that you may have not developed. When I look back at all my relationships, I can see that, well, one, they all opened up my heart in different ways. but two, they allowed me to kick into a different energy that I hadn't mastered yet. I have a really strong masculine energy and now a very strong feminine energy, and they're really in balance. I can actually feel it in my energy channels. But I remember looking back at all the relationships that I had, that those were really bringing me more into my feminine essence. One of the first most powerful relationships that I had happened about 6 years ago. I've had ones before that, but the first one where I was like, wow, I actually want to marry this person and commit to them. That relationship had an incredibly chemical, energetic, explosive, cataclysmic reaction in my body and outside within my energy field. But I remember that was not a compatible relationship at all. And so it's important to look at both sides of the coin, chemistry, but also compatibility in terms of lifestyles and how you do things, long-term desires and goals on both ends. So it's important to look at both of those. Don't allow the explosiveness, the limerence stage, that high chemical reaction and good feeling to move you into a relationship and that doesn't have long-term compatibility, unless if you're, it's fine to look for passion and intimacy, but if you want something stable or secure and you want that commitment, well, it's important to look at long-term compatibility. That new chemistry that kicks in the beginning of every relationship is great, and it's powerful and it's awesome and it feels really good. But if you want that third part of the triangle, remember, in any intimate relationship, we need, there's Sternberg's theory of love, we need that passion, that intimacy, but we also need that commitment. And with that commitment, there's compatibility facets that we need to be aware of that allow us to have a healthy, good relationship. Number two, just because you're alike doesn't mean you're compatible. It's really easy to see yourself into another person, even if you're aware of projections. I'm very aware of my filters. I'm very aware of when I project, but it still hits me sometimes. And it's really important to see people for who they really are, shadow and all. And if you have a really deep sense of self and a deep sense of awareness, and you can live beyond that sense of individual egoic self, you can really step outside of yourself and see what people are about and what it is that they need or want, and see what it is that you need and want, and see if you're both compatible in that way. For me, whenever I see myself in another person, I get really excited. I'm like, oh, cool, I love that. I love this part about that person because I love these attributes of myself. But when I see that within another person, after I see that, I then ask myself, okay, what are the parts of them past, the past of what I see in myself? It's so easy to see yourself in other people, but you also want to completely go to the opposite end and say, what parts are not like me at all, so you can actually see those parts of the other person and see if that works good for you and for potentially creating a relationship. Remember, just because someone is like you or they have similar attributes to you and that you really love, like the parts that you might really love about yourself you can see in another person, that's not enough for a healthy long-term relationship. Really, compatibility is such a great thing. In one of my previous relationships, this was actually one of my most recent ones 2 years ago, I was dating an artist, and a lot of us was nothing alike. Yet there was really deep chemistry there, and we really had a deep sense of connection for one another. I was like a former military guy who was really aware of time. We had similar interests and shared things, but there was parts of us that were totally different. I liked really nice, clean things. She was more messy, and so it was just really interesting to see the differences come out and play out in the relationship, but that we were highly compatible. So don't just automatically assume that just because someone's so different from you that you can't have a great, wonderful relationship with them. You really can. In fact, someone who's completely the opposite of you or very different might be exactly what you need to get to another level of evolution, or just to have a really great relationship, depending on what you're looking for out of a relationship. And finally, number three, you won't ever know fully whether a relationship is the best one for you. That's what makes relationships great. It's unknown. Anytime that you dive deep into the feminine, and the divine feminine is where everything is birthed from, even the masculine. The masculine builds the container for the divine feminine. The feminine is the birth of everything. It births everything into existence. If you want that passion, that love, that intimacy, that fire, that great deep connection, it's going to be chaotic. So you have to be okay with recognizing that there's going to be things about this that are really chaotic, and just allow it. You know, for me, being conditioned by the military, especially the Marine Corps, we are masters of chaos. We were trained to dive fully deep into any bit of chaos and embrace it fully, and try to put parameters on it. And it's funny, as I open up more and more into different aspects of my own existence in the world and other people, that sense of controlling chaos, I know how to do it, but I know when to enact it or when not to. So know that in any relationship, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be things that don't make sense. That's just the very nature of life and reality. The better that... Not the better, but when you can be okay with that sense of chaos and uncertainty, you're going to see that life is more alive and more enjoyable. Uncertainty is what makes it feel alive. Now, that doesn't mean you still don't want to place your masculine energy there and build containers where you need to build containers. It's important to be able to push out either or energy, whatever you need to create the relationship or whatever you need to create, whatever it is that you want to create. It's important to be able to access either masculine energy or feminine energy and bring both of them forward. So really creating a relationship to chaos and uncertainty is absolutely critical. I don't see this with a lot of men. It's something that our culture doesn't teach us. Pretty much everything in our culture teaches us to, here's a manual or a way to do things, so you don't feel that anxiety. Because when you want to control things, there's always an underlying anxiety and fear of not being in control. I know for me, one of the greatest things that I learned when I was really young, actually 19 years old, one of my first combat deployment to Afghanistan, experiencing so much death and witnessing people die and having to take the lives of other people, that really gave me an opportunity to be okay with chaos. And I really built a relationship with the uncertainty and the unknown that was healthy. It was like, okay, this is all a crazy shit show. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm okay with this, and I'm just going to go forward with it anyway. And that sense of aliveness is really what makes life and relationship exciting. Is, okay, this is crazy, this is chaotic, I don't know what to do next, or here, but I'm okay, I'm fully invested, I'm fully in it, and I know that I can do whatever it is that I need to do in order to create a beautiful life or beautiful relationship, whatever it may be. So really, ultimately, learning your relationship to chaos or uncertainty is really critical to having a great relationship in anything in life, because that's the fundamental nature of everything, is uncertainty. And so when you get into that grounded sense of groundlessness, and what I mean by that is really being grounded into the infinitely unknown, uncertain level of creation, then everything just becomes naturally okay. You'll feel at ease. Like, that's where we find our most security in anything in life, is when we know that everything is uncertain, and we learn to be okay with that uncertainty. It doesn't mean that you won't experience fear. It just means that, look, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm just going to take one step in front of the next and do what I know best, and that's it. And being okay with it. It doesn't mean that fear might not still arise. It certainly will, but you don't have to stop there. The better relationship you have to chaos and uncertainty, the unknown, the more successful relationships and the more quote-unquote external success I think you'll have in life, because that's what life is. It's chaos. It's a playground. Things are always changing and shifting, and the better you get at not being emotionally triggered by the uncertainty, the more fun you can have, and the more enjoyable the more enjoyable experience you'll create for yourself and the people in your life. That's all I got for this time. Thanks so much for joining me, you guys. If you haven't yet, please sign up for the Sacred Relationship series that Laura and I have been doing. We have about one more month left. The link is right there below in the YouTube description box. Also, if you found this helpful, please share with any family or friends. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. That's all I have for this time. Thanks so much for joining me, you guys. Be looking out for new videos. I will be starting my Awakening series in July. I'm really excited about the Awakening series. It's some of the most recent within the last 3 years, really, I've been working on this deeper worldview and way of interacting with the world. I know that the world is hungry for a pragmatic spirituality. That's kind of a oxymoron, a pragmatic spirituality, but a spirituality that explains their human subjective experience, but also gives them a sense of empowerment, but also gives them a sense of being okay with the absolute unknown. So I've been building that framework out for the last 3 years, and I'm really excited to share it with the world. So I'll be starting that series in July, and I'll be setting up the back-end structures for that. So I'd love for you to be a part of that as well. That's all I have. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.